Hi, welcome back. Understanding your audience is essential if you want to write persuasively, and so in today's video we're going to talk about a few ways to understand and address your audience more effectively. Really, addressing an audience isn't something that people are really very good at these days. It seems like most often people are good at declaring their beliefs and stating their opinions and thinking that other people should agree with them, but they're not as good at making meaningful connections with their audience and really helping their audience to understand why they should believe things the way that the writers do. So if you remember from our last video, rhetoric is about getting people on the same page. And so if you're writing rhetorically, you're trying to get your audience to be on the same page that you are on, to understand things the way you understand them, to see things the way you see them. And you don't accomplish that just by telling them what page you're on, right? You can stand up and you can shout your opinion for as long as you want and as loud as you want, tell people what you believe and why you believe it, but people don't like being forced. So if all you're doing is telling people what you believe, and your audience can tell that you're not trying to make an actual connection with them and to see things through their eyes and to understand things the way they do, then you're probably not going to be as successful. So when I think about writing for an audience, I really like to take a cue from the book Ender's Game. And if you haven't read it, you should. It's a great book. But what you need to know is that the main character, Andrew Ender Wiggin, is a tactical genius, a prodigy really. He's a child who gets drafted at a very young age to help the Earth fight against an alien species that threatens the planet. You might be wondering, what does any of this have to do with writing rhetorically? Well, partway through the book, Ender explains where his tactical genius comes from. In the book, Ender says, "In the moment when I truly understand my enemy, understand him well enough to defeat him, then in that very moment, I also love him." I think it's impossible to really understand somebody, what they want, what they believe, and not love them in the way they love themselves. And then, in that very moment when I love them, I destroy them. So think about that for just a second. Ender did not win those battles because he was the smartest or the strongest or because he had the best equipment. Kind of paradoxically, he won because he loved his enemy. He was able to beat them because he knew them so well. He knew what mattered to them. He knew how they worked. He knew what kinds of attacks and strategies they would employ against him. And because of that, because he knew them so well to the point of loving them, he was able to predict what they would do and to use their strategies and their patterns against them in order to win. And so essentially that's the key to writing effectively to an audience. You have to understand them. You have to really understand what makes them tick. And you have to know how your rhetorical strategies are going to work in order to appeal to them. So here's the point. Unless you have put in the work really to love your audience, to understand them well enough to know what makes them tick, to know what they value, to know what they believe in, you're probably going to have a pretty difficult time actually getting them on the same page as you when you present your argument. You really have to know what they want. And if that seems to be different from what you want at first, then you're going to have to do the work of helping them to see, first of all, that you understand what they're after, and that how whatever you're arguing for actually does help them in the end. Because remember, it's really not that impressive to be able to persuade people who already agree with you. I mean, that's not really persuasion anyway. So let's imagine for a second that I had just started a YouTube channel and that I wanted subscribers. Well, in such a scenario, I could just sit down in front of a camera and say the word subscribe, 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 over and over and over for like 10 minutes and 30 seconds in order to persuade people to subscribe, right? That would serve my purposes 100%. I want subscribers, and so I tell people to subscribe in the video that I've made, and then they're on the same page, right? Rhetoric has happened and they've been persuaded, and now I'm going to get my subscribers. But when you think about that really, how many people are going to watch a video like that from start to finish, or even at all? And then if you were watching a video like that, how likely would you be to subscribe to that channel? I'm willing to bet that you wouldn't be very likely to subscribe. 10 minutes of me begging for subscribers would just be a rhetorical strategy that serves me and me only. And it has nothing to do with my audience, with their desires or their beliefs. It's a good way to state what I want, but it's not a very good way to get other people on the same page. So maybe I could try a different strategy. Instead of doing something that's all about me and about what I want, maybe I could instead try presenting an argument or a video that gives you something that you would want, a more audience-centered approach. Maybe I could present an argument about why my goal to have subscribers is compatible with some goal that you also have. So maybe I do some research and find out that there just really aren't a lot of useful videos on YouTube about how to do college writing. And maybe I combine that with the knowledge about college writing that I have from teaching it for a couple of years. Maybe then, instead of just telling you what I want and expecting you to fall in line because it's what I want and I'm right, I could produce a video or two that offers some straightforward writing advice and promise you that there will be plenty more to come. In such a scenario then, when I ask you to subscribe, you'll be doing it not just because I want subscribers and I've begged you for it. Instead, you'll do it because you want to learn more about writing. Now, of course, this is a purely hypothetical scenario, but you can probably see how an audience-centered approach to writing or to presenting your argument can really make a huge difference for your success in persuading your audience or getting them on the same page. Of course, you probably wouldn't be too interested in a channel that's just me telling you why you should subscribe. Not even that, but why I want you to subscribe. But you're probably much more likely to be interested in a channel and to subscribe when it provides some value for you, when the creator has managed to see things through your eyes and to show you how whatever it is that they're providing will help you. As always, we could go into much greater depth, and there's plenty more that we will say in future videos about audience and writing to an audience, but for now, let's just quickly recap. First, of course, writing a good paper or argument is about much more than just stating your opinion. Whenever you write, you have to keep your audience in mind. And of course, you will write to your audience much more effectively if you can see things through their eyes, understand and know them well enough to love them, and then present your argument in a way that makes sense to them and helps them to achieve what they're after. If you're really trying to get on the same page, you're trying to help you and your audience see things in the same way so that you then work towards a common goal. So as we go on to talk more about writing and rhetoric in the future, keep in mind that audience is central to almost everything we'll do as writers and rhetoricians. Persuasion really only works if you're connecting with your audience in a meaningful way. So it's always going to be worth the effort to try to understand your audience and to understand their values and to present your ideas and your arguments in terms that make sense to them and in terms that align with their values and beliefs. And of course, purely hypothetically, if you're the kind of person who's interested in learning more about writing and rhetoric, why not subscribe to the channel so that you can keep up with all the latest tips and tricks for writing more effectively. Until next time. Really, addressing an audience isn't something that people are really terribly good at these days. It seems we're much better more often at flubbing our lines, which is where we're headed today. I would like somebody to help me to do better.